Is your call about GlobalFoundries being the wrong asset, or is this broader Pat Gelsinger's strategy to push deeper into manufacturing?
Well, I mean, a little of both, I guess. I mean, look, I get Pat's push into manufacturing. It's sort of funny, the bull call on the stock like 4 or 5 months ago was Intel was going to go fab light and get out of manufacturing. So Pat sort of put the kibosh on that. They have been building up or attempting to build up their own leading edge foundry business. They're building $20 billion in Arizona for this. Part of the problem, though, is that Intel has not been a foundry. They don't know how to be a foundry necessarily. And so if you're thinking about the ways that GlobalFoundries could add to it, it would bring them a foundry customer base. It's not leading edge, it's lagging, it's mature enough, but it would bring them a customer base. And it would potentially give them expertise, like in actually how to run a foundry, which, historically they've been bad at. They don't know how to do it. At the same time, if you think about the foundry industry, TSMC is really the only one. They're the 800-pound gorilla. They make a ton of money. The other ones are kind of marginal, and of the other players, UMC, SMIC, Samsung, like GlobalFoundries is probably the worst of the lot. The economics are still pretty lousy. They've been lousy. I mean, they've been trying to dress it up. They've been trying to do an IPO, but at the same time, the economics are still lousy. The margins are dilutive, and you look at what they're paying for it. You sort of think about this. If they spend $30 billion for GloFo and $50 billion and $20 billion for Arizona, that's $50 billion total that would be coming out of Intel. The entirety of the subsidies that the U.S. government is talking about for the entire industry is $52 billion. So it sort of gives you some idea of the scale that Pat is thinking about in terms of investing here.
So, Stacey, what price tag for GlobalFoundries do you think would make sense, if not $30 billion? And what are the other assets that you think that Intel should buy instead?
I don't know. Look, so I'm not going to set price targets on GloFo. The price, if the $30 billion is correct, that's 5 or 6 times sales. TSMC right now sells for about 10 times sales. And again, TSMC is an entirely different asset. SMIC is in China. They're about 7 times sales. UMC is in Taiwan. They're about 3 times sales. For some context, UMC's net margins right now about 15%. It's probably pretty peakish. GlobalFoundries is losing money, and they'd be spending twice as much on it as UMC trades for right now in Taiwan. As far as what else they should buy, like, again, I don't know. I mean, if the goal is to get into foundry, if that is the strategy, there's not a whole lot else out there. I mean, GloFo kind of makes sense, and they are headquartered here in the U.S. versus the other ones, which are, Taiwanese and Chinese and Korean. So, I mean, if that's the goal, to try to build a trailing node business and to get some of that expertise, I mean, GloFo is kind of it, but maybe that's why they've got to pay up for it if they're serious about buying it.
I'm looking at this and wondering what is Pat Gelsinger sitting in his office most worried about, and why is he looking and eyeing this company? And if you're you're sitting in the office, why?
I don't think it's GloFo is a piece of a broader strategy. The question is, like, why is he looking to get like wholehearted into the foundry industry? And there could be a few reasons. Obviously, their own core business is under attack. And if they think that there's assets that they can leverage in that other industry against a player like TSMC, I guess that's a way to go. Obviously, there's this huge concern about the U.S. in general being too dependent on Taiwan for manufacturing. And so this is potentially a mechanism to unlock some of those subsidies. If Pat can go to Congress and say, we will be the national champion, we're the only U.S. company that's capable of, quote unquote, leading edge manufacturing, we can help break the dependence on Taiwan. And to do that, we need to build a third-party foundry industry here. Mm-hmm. That may be, obviously that's a driver. The other is, like, if you think about some of the threats on the core business, you've got A&D taking share. You've got other architectures like ARM that are starting to eat into x86. If that happens, if they have a manufacturing business, a third-party manufacturing business, they could, in theory, still make parts for other players and still capture some of that opportunity, even if, like, their own business is moving away to that. It would give them a foothold into some of the other stuff as their own business becomes under attack. So these are all the things that I'm sure Pat is thinking about right now.